Tuesday, the 27th of May. Great to have your company. Coming up on the program this morning, hospital EDs are reporting record capacity with winter just around the corner. The worst is yet to come. Now, we are going to bring you a full wrap of this morning's news. I'd like to apologise for us being just a little bit late to air. We had a few technical problems. It's just gone 10 minutes after 7, but here we are. And senior investigative reporter Michael Mora spoke with staff on the front lines of this health crisis following his story here on Herald NOW yesterday.
Dr. Kate Allen has a warning about the state of the country's hospital emergency departments.
Some departments are reporting that they are having the highest numbers they've had, so record numbers of presentations already, and we're not hitting winter yet.
In the 7 days between May 14 and May 20, Health New Zealand data shows Christchurch's ED saw an average of 413 patients arrive every day. In the same time period, Middlemore's ED had an average of 325 patients turning up each day. To put that into context, Health New Zealand put out an alert last year when Christchurch's ED was seeing 430 patients a day, saying at that time that the ED was, quote, extremely busy. And I've been told that Middlemore Hospital's ED was built to take 270 patients a day. As the data shows, that ED is already seeing many more than that at the moment.
Now, the Minister, Simeon Brown, is standing by. We're going to be with him in just a few moments. But first, and if you didn't catch yesterday's story, last winter, 1,500 patients were treated in the corridors of hospitals just at Middlemore. And we also had 43 incidents or high-risk incidents at those hospitals during last winter. So we're gearing up for another busy winter. Dr. Sylvia Boys is an emergency physician. Speaking, though, here on behalf of the Association of Salaried Medical Specialists. She's the National Vice President. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being with me. Give us a quick snapshot. How bad is it?
Last winter was brutal, and you can't underestimate the soul-sucking nature of apologising to every patient you see for waiting 8, 10, 12 hours, of moving from one more urgent case to another, squeezing past people on trolleys who are suffering. It's dreadful, and it's not good care.
When we say people are being treated in the corridors, for what, like a cold, or is it serious stuff too? What?
Even our strokes, road traffic crashes. We have no space and no capacity left in the EDs. The wards are full, patients can't move up to the wards. We have more presentations than we can get through. There are inadequate staff to treat people in a timely manner, and there's inadequate space to even find space to see people.
Car crashes and strokes.
Yes.
What about this winter?
So we think of ED as being relatively unpredictable, but actually it's quite predictable. Every year we have at least 2 to 5% increase in the baseline number, and then a winter peak of presentations that actually really closely mirrors the prevalence of influenza in the community. So predictably we will have more presentations this winter than last winter, but we've had no new resource put in. Now, the other prediction we can make about what's winter going to be like is we can look at what happened in the Northern Hemisphere last winter. And what happened there was that they had what they've labelled the quaddemic. So they had a real influx in viral illness. Yeah, COVID, influenza, mycoplasma pneumonia and RSV.
Okay, so we know it's going to be busier this winter than last winter. Last winter was hell on earth. So you asked for, well, the clinicians asked for, I think, $3.5 million would help to solve this at Middlemore alone, and that was declined?
Yep.
And there's been so since last winter and this winter, has anything changed in that emergency department?
No.
The Minister is about to come on the program, and I'm assuming is going to mention that there was the Manukau Health Park expansion that's coming. Is that a good thing?
Look, we need more facilities across the whole of the health sector. Primary care is really stretched. 75% of practices are running at a loss, where our average GP age is just below retirement age. Secondary care, there's huge waits for specialist appointments and for treatment, and that's if people are lucky enough to even be considered appropriate for those slots. And then more advanced care, there's also phenomenal waits and shortages all across.
What's your big question for the Minister this morning?
Look, I think we definitely need additional funding to cover staff sickness. We had a third of our nurses call in sick for our night shift a couple of nights ago. We need to be able to offer additional duties to people to cover those last minute vacancies, so we're at a minimum staffing level, but ideally we need more. There are longer term, we need a commitment, we need some hope on the future that we're going to have the additional facilities and staff we need. It takes time to recruit from overseas. But we also have to overcome the hurdle that our salaries are not internationally competitive, and we're trying to recruit from overseas but paying 67% less than Australia.
I very much appreciate you coming on the program this morning.
Thank you so
for
much.
the good work that you do at the hospital. Dr. Sylvia Boyes, who's an emergency physician and the Association of Salaried Medical Specialists National Vice President. Time is 16 after 7 now. We are going to talk to Simeon Brown, who is the Minister, shortly. If you've got anything to say on any of the topics we're talking about this morning, do give us an email. It's Herald Now. I told you the world's worst email address. Herald Now at nzherald.co.nz. So hard to say. We would love your feedback this morning and we will read it out on air. Joining us now is the Minister, Simeon Brown, who has promptly switched places. Good morning.
Good morning, Ryan. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Have you seen this report, this clinician's report, about the patients being treated at Middlemore last year?
I haven't seen the report. I've obviously seen the reporting of it in the Herald yesterday. It was an internal clinical assessment of the needs there. And look, there is a significant amount of pressure across our health system. That's why this government is putting a record investment into health. We've increased health spending by 7% in this year's budget.
How much at Middlemore ED?
But this is a process which Health New Zealand is going through to make sure that there are regional and district budgets put in place.
Do you know how much money you put in the budget into the ED at Middlemore?
Well, I don't have that specific number, but what I can tell you...
It's the busiest hospital in the country. You must have some idea.
It's the second busiest ED after Christchurch, which is obviously incredibly busy as well. What I would say is when the last government centralised our health system and put it all together into Health New Zealand, they took away the local budgets, they took away the local decision making, and that's led to a number of the challenges that we're facing. And so we're going through a process now to actually put back in place local decision making, local budgets, so and that the
locals are telling you $3.4 million would have really helped.
Correct.
Did you know that before the budget? Did you know that there was that request from clinicians?
Look, this is where Health New Zealand's responsible. I, as the Minister, am responsible for the overall budget. In terms of the individual budgets of each individual ward or each individual department across Health New Zealand, that's the role of the Health New Zealand Commissioners and their executive leadership team to utilise the resource that we as a government are putting in.
Are you happy with the way that they're doing that? You were just sitting here listening to Sylvia. Are you happy with the way that they're allocating resource?
I'm not happy with the way that Health New Zealand was restructured into one single mega entity.
You can't use that excuse forever.
Well, that's why we're going through a process to put in place district and regional budgets with district and regional decision making. So that is a process that is currently underway, and it's critically important, Ryan, that we do that. So there is...
When will they get the
money? By the middle of this year, that is when those budgets will...
By the middle of this year, they'll get $3.4 million.
By the middle of this year, that's when Health New Zealand will have those budgets put in place. I was on the phone last night with Dr. Vanessa Thornton, who's the Group Director of Operations at Middlemore Hospital. And look, I would just also point out the fact...
you're on the phone. What's she saying?
And what we're saying is we're going through a process to put in place these district and regional budgets to address these challenges, so that then the leadership,
so how much will they get?
So that leaders like Vanessa,
you've got to if you're an emergency physician like Sylvia in a hospital listening to this, you're like, oh, this is waffle words.
There's a range of things that need to be done, Ryan, in order to address this challenge. Counties Manukau is also the only part of Auckland which does not have a 24/7 after hours urgent care clinic, and so the emergency department is the only place that people can go after hours. That's why this government's also funding in this budget an after-hours urgent care clinic in Counties Manukau, so there is an alternative to reduce pressure on it. If the answer is simply,
if you can afford to pay for it, right? That's the other thing.
If the answer, if the solution is only investing more in the ED, we're actually missing the bigger picture.
Totally
we need to invest in primary care.
Totally
we need to invest in the emergency departments.
People being
we need to invest
for strokes and car accidents in the corridor, Minister. You've got to start asking yourself
and we also
whether
need
you
to
might
invest,
need a bit of a band-aid.
And we also need to invest in the infrastructure, and that's why South Auckland's been identified as the next place for a major hospital build, probably in the Drury area, and we're starting the process around that because actually we also need the infrastructure. So there's a range of things that need to be done, Ryan, and as Minister, there's a huge amount on the work program to deal with these challenges.
Do you get any advice? Have you had any advice on how many people might be treated in corridors this winter?
Look, there's advice that comes through around how hospitals prepare.
What does it say?
Well, if there's an influx of patients, as sometimes happens, where you might have 100 people come through the door in 2 hours, then there's very little alternative.
What are the numbers you're being given?
Well, I haven't had district by district modelling, but
what about nationwide?
What I would say, the point here is when you have large numbers of people come through an emergency department in a short period of time, obviously those hard-working doctors and nurses in those emergency departments have to do the best they can. What we also need to do is make sure we're preventing them coming through in the first place. That's where urgent care clinics, that's where the 24/7 telehealth, digital health option that we're putting in places, that's where investing in more into general practice is critically important to keep people well in the community. We're allocating $285 million over 3 years on top of the capitation uplift for general practice, so they're able to do more in the community. So there's a range of things we need to do to improve our hospital performance across New Zealand, and that's what I'm focused on doing.
Right, appreciate your time this morning, Minister. Thanks very much for coming in. And sorry for the delay as well. 21 minutes after 7, and you're watching Herald Now. That was Simeon Brown, the Minister of Health. Coming up, New Zealand dairy companies are banking on making it big in China. Labour leader Chris Hipkins is with us in the studio. That and more straight after this.
You Do It DIY can make your new dream kitchen a reality. As a trusted Kiwi manufacturer for 44 years, You Do It has made it easy to design, order and assemble your own dream kitchen, offering a range of colour options and flexible sizing. With excellent online support, our customers all agree that You Do It makes DIY easy, delivering superb quality at a great price. Get your project started today at youdoit.co.nz.
In 1985, my grandfather set out to make the world a better tea. That's why we grow our own, unlike other tea companies. Then pick the best leaves by hand, not machine, and pack it right here in Sri Lanka. But it's not just the taste that makes our tea better. 15% of our profit goes to humanity. And to the elephants. As my grandfather said,
do try it.
After 20 seasons on the footy field, it's fair to say I know a thing or two about resilience, just like Kaiwaka wet weather gear. Digging deep when the going gets tough. Kaiwaka, designed to perform, made to outlast.
No Lemmings Price Smash is on now! Grab this Oppo Reno 12 Pro for $699. This Dell Intel i5 notebook for $1039. Get 20% off these accessories and smart home brands. Finance options available. On now at No Lemming.
Here she is. How's the business going?
Good, actually. We just switched to 2 degrees. Well, we tested the networks and couldn't see any difference. But 2 degrees has the most satisfied customers. With Flex, we get instant control of phone plans, data usage, and cost center reporting. And they're the fastest growing business network.
Can I have what she's having?
Welcome back. You're watching Herald Now. It is 24 minutes after 7. We haven't got to your news yet. We will do a news update at past. Garth Bray is with us next for business. I'm just glad that this little technical problem happened on day 2, not day 1. Okay. Thank you very much for being with us anyway. Watercare is under fire this morning from property developers for slamming the brakes on new water connections in areas across Auckland. Take a look at this map from Watercare. The blue, the orange and the grey areas all have limits on new water connections or wastewater connections, meaning that developments are stalled. A lot of them currently can go no further. Joining me now is former Auckland Councillor Michael Gowdy, who convenes Housing Without Hurdles. Good morning.
Morning, Ryan.
How bad is, I mean, looking at the map, there's a lot of colours you don't want to see on there, right?
I mean, it's shocking, eh? If a picture speaks 1,000 words, does that not say it all? Yeah, I guess like you don't have to be a genius to kind of look outside and appreciate that we maybe have some work to do in bringing up infrastructure, but it's putting, like, this would be our number one constraint over bringing new homes, new developments, new commercial areas, new jobs into Auckland specifically.
The biggest constraint for Auckland's developers in terms of building new homes is this. So what about the fixes? What is Medicare saying about when this might end?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think that's a complicated question, and I think if you start to unpack that, we go, well, why has there been an underinvestment in new infrastructure to bring on growth? If you take a catchment alone where I live, you know, you've got 60,000 people live in that catchment. In the IGC, or the infrastructure growth charge that like Watercare specifically charge, they've said there's about 800 connections a year, so that's $24 million just for my little catchment on new infrastructure for that area. At the same time, they're also saying, sorry, we're going to put a halt to these connections. We've put a line in the sand, and because we don't actually think we've got the capacity there to take on any more growth.
If you're a developer, and I know that you've been speaking to a lot of developers, I spoke to one just in the last couple of days. They didn't really know this was going to happen, right? So you buy the land, you start the development, you sell the sections, and then it's like, whammo. Yeah,
you definitely have had the rug pulled from underneath you in this instance. As you say, I appreciate there's not a lot of sympathy for developers around, but these are the people, the companies that are bringing on growth across the country, right? And so, for example, one of our members, you know, is $40 million in the hole for a development. That's only bringing on 88 new lots in this development. So they are that far down the track, 3 years down the track, and are doing that in good faith. That are doing it. They've got a resource consent that's approved. Their engineering planning approvals are done. In fact, Watercare are working on with them on obviously taking over a certain amount of assets that they're building, to get then mid-November to be like, hey, actually, here's the maps. No more connections for these areas unless we say.
Pretty brutal.
Yeah.
Hey, Michael, thanks for coming and explaining the issue to us, because I think it's important that people we all get our heads around just how screwed we are.
It's bleak. It's real bleak.
It is bleak.
Yeah, it is bleak.
And everyone wants more housing. Well, you got to literally go somewhere, don't
you? Have we got a housing crisis, or is it a delivery crisis? Like, the building the homes is the real easy part, right? So.
Hey, appreciate you coming on, Michael.
Thanks,
Good
Ryan.
to see you. That's Michael Gowdy. He's the former Auckland councillor, now talking about housing across the city. If you've got anything you want to say to us, flick us an email, heraldnow@nzherald.co.nz. That's heraldnow@nzherald.co.nz. It's just gone 28 minutes after 7. Time now for business. Thanks to our partners, 2 Degrees, and it's great to have them on board. Exporters are expecting big wins from a massive bakery convention in Shanghai. Meanwhile, a little Kiwi startup is about to flood Australian stores with oat milk. Here to tell us more, Business Desk's Garth Bray. Garth, good morning.
Good morning, Ryan.
So let's go to Shanghai first.
Yeah, well, while the rest of the world is fretting about Trump's tariff deal with Europe on, off, whatever, we've got Kiwis up in Shanghai at Bakery in China, which is this massive convention. I think something like the population of Christchurch goes through this place in 4 days and looks at everything that's going on. It's a huge opportunity for New Zealand businesses, and we've had our man Riley Kennedy up here taking a look around. I guess one of the things that he found fascinating was who's there and who's not. You had, Fonterra putting a big push in there because obviously there's a $130 billion market up there at the moment, and it's going to grow by 50% over the next 3 years, and they're all already grabbing their share of that. They had a milk tanker on the floor up there for people to take a look at, and this sort of vast display that looked a lot like a game show. The US trade delegation, it looked a little bit more like one of those sort of locksmiths you have in the middle of the mall. Kind of like real small scale.
Well, so, not surprising, I suppose, given the state of things.
Yeah.
All right, what else, Garth? What have we got today?
Oats. Nothing boring about boring oat milk. You've probably seen it in the shops. It's, I think, something like about 20% or so of the plant milk that's consumed here. They have got a deal to go into Australia big time. They have been pushing slowly through specialist stores. They're now into 950 Woolworths outlets and about 80 odd metros. So that's like 1,000 stores. They're going huge with sort of Southland Oats and Otago Oats, and really just a great story of a business that didn't exist 3 or 4 years ago and has just scaled up massively through a plant in Hawke's Bay and is going gangbusters, really.
Brilliant. Garth, good to see you as always. Thanks for the update. That's Garth Bray from Business Desk, and that was our daily business chat. Thanks to our partners at 2 Degrees. It is just gone 7:30. You're watching Herald Now. It's time for News with Neva. Oh, in just any second now. She's just getting ready. Putting her lippy on for you. Don't forget you can watch us at nzherald.co.nz. If you want to know how to do that specifically, the video will be in the top right-hand corner of your screen. You can click on the video, it'll go full screen into your browser. And if you want to watch us on your big screen, you can do that at Herald Now TV on YouTube. You'll find us streaming there from 7 till 9 weekdays. Here's Neva.
Herald Now News, powered by Newstalk ZB.
Winston Peters has drawn a line in the sand ahead of next year's election. For the first time, the New Zealand First Leader has explicitly ruled out working with Labour if the party is still led by Chris Hipkins. Ruling out Labour is an unusual move from Peters, who has famously been careful to never make any pre-election commitments when it comes to potential formations of government. He says Labour's abandonment of their fundamental roots as a party means they're in deep trouble, and he has no interest with working with them after the election. An Auckland business leader says technology is a key component in tracking down shoplifters. RNZ reports police staff have been directed to not investigate allegations of shoplifting below $500 and online fraud below $1,000. Police may not take further action if the reports don't have enough evidence, such as CCTV. But Newmarket Business Association Chief Executive Mark Knopf-Thomas says more businesses are investing in security cameras and new developments will make them even better. New Zealand has the third highest rate of prescription opioid use during pregnancy. A new Otago University study with 13 high-income countries has found 8% of New Zealand pregnancies are exposed to opioids. The painkillers increase risks of adverse effects such as defects, preterm births and neurodevelopmental conditions. Otago University lecturer Dr. Sarah Donald says although this is unexpected, it isn't as scary as it sounds.
Of the opioid being dispensed in New Zealand, it was predominantly codeine, a weak opioid, which would have fewer health impacts compared to something like morphine or oxycodone.
Assurance Greyhound Racing New Zealand's legal challenge of an incoming ban holds no water. Racing Minister Winston Peters gave the industry 20 months to wind down from November. Greyhound Racing NZ is applying for a judicial review, saying the government failed to inform, prepare and consult on the ban. Safe Campaign manager Emma Brodie says the organisation was not blindsided by this, despite what they claim. The snow that fell on Mount Hutt earlier this month is gone. The ski field has confirmed it's no longer able to open to skiers and riders this King's Birthday weekend. A dump of snow earlier this month gave hope the mountain could be open 2 weeks early and in May for the first time since 2009. But ski area manager James McKenzie says all that snow has melted. He says the forecast does have some cold weather on the way, but they're not confident it will arrive in time. Police are responding to reports of a car colliding with a number of pedestrians at Liverpool Football Club's victory parade. A man has been arrested.
Herald Now Sport, brought to you by Gold Sport.
The Mystics remain unbeaten in netball's ANZ Premiership after a 55-54 win over the Steel in Dunedin. Defending champion Iga Swiatek has launched her quest for an unprecedented fourth consecutive women's title at the French Tennis Open with a straight sets win. Auckland FC assistant coach Danny Hay has been given a 2-match ban to serve in the next A-League football season for offensive sideline behaviour. And a guest sailor could feature on cruise at the next America's Cup.
Thank you, Neva. It is 26 minutes away from 8 o'clock now. So Winston has definitively ruled out working with Chris Hipkins. Not Labor, but Hipkins. He had, of course, already pretty much done this earlier in the year after his State of the Nation address, in which he called the Labor leadership a bunch of liars and uninformed losers. Remember that? But this is crystal clear now. He's spoken to Thomas Coughlan at the Herald. It's a hard no from Winnie. This is interesting for two reasons. One, he's betting on basically the Nats being in the best spot to form a government after the election, either that or Chippy not being the leader. Two, Winston is a political wizard and he knows how to read the room and play the game. This is not a random outburst from Winston Peters. This is a calculated decision based on the path he thinks will get New Zealand First back to the Treasury benches. By virtue of ruling out Hipkins, assuming he doesn't get rolled and replaced, Winston has reduced his bargaining power, which is not an outcome that a kingmaker like him takes lightly. The key to his success on the campaign trail has always been as much about what he stands against as what he stands for. Think immigration, think treaty issues. He's decided that in 2026, the punching bag will be a three-headed clown show marriage of the Greens, Labor and Te Pāti Māori. He's read the room, he's picked his side. The question for Hipkins this morning, as he wakes up and he reads Winston deciding his fate in the Herald, is this: are you finally willing to rule out working with Winston Peters? You've so far refused to do this, despite calling him basically a racist, Trumpian, a tobacco industry lobbyist. Are you finally willing this morning to say no, hold up your own sign? Or is there a small part of you, Chippy, deep down in your heart of hearts, that hopes he'll change his mind? That under MMP, to get power, sometimes options trump morals? Chippy's on the program in half an hour. We'll ask him. Here's Heather with the weather.
Herald Now weather. Brought to you by You Do It.
Good morning. The front that tracked up over the country over the last couple of days will continue to head east today, finally clearing the country tonight. The good news is that all watches and warnings have now expired, but the next round of severe weather isn't far away, with widespread rain arriving tomorrow. But first today, and apart from morning and evening cloud, the lower south is calm. Just a little more cloud expected for Te Miru and Dunedin, with developing nor'easterlies. It's looking much drier here today than yesterday, with cloud breaking for a time in the afternoon and just one or two showers remaining out west. Now, the last of the showers will clear the lower North Island this morning, with fine spells increasing after midday. Winds are light, just a northerly, developing by this evening for Wellington. There is still plenty of rain here today though, with heavy rain this morning for some. It'll start to clear across the day with north to nor'easterlies. And a similar story as we head north, with the rain set to clear this morning as that front heads east. Winds turn southerly late this morning for Northland, with southeasterlies for Auckland.
Thanks, Heather. We're going to get to Nick Smith in Nelson after the deluge that they had there yesterday, a little later in the program. A tenant in Rotorua has been paid out more than $6,000 after enduring severe mould, leaks and broken appliances. We've got Kelly Makiha, who's our Rotorua Post multimedia reporter, with us this morning. Kelly, good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Yeah, really good, thank you. Tell us about this tenant.
Yeah, look, it's a Rotorua trust that's linked to a landlord by the name of Stephen Barner, who's actually been before the tenancy tribunal just recently. Now, the tribunal has ruled that the trust must pay the tenant more than $6,000, and what in some cases is the maximum amount of penalties for what is found to be poor living conditions. So, look, the tribunal also found that the trust had, in some cases, deliberately misled the tenant by handing over what the tenant thought was a bunch of paperwork that proved that the property was compliant with healthy home standards, when in fact it wasn't. So look, the tenant endured mould, leaks, faulty appliances. There was a leak that apparently the landlord tried to fix with a ice cream container. And things were so bad for this tenant that the tenant actually couldn't prepare food in the kitchen. She had to, because the bench tops apparently were just so mouldy that she had to go into the other room, the living room, to prepare food. It then got so bad that she couldn't do it there. She had to go across the road to her mother's house The other thing that she couldn't do in the house is have a shower, because the water pressure was apparently so bad it just trickled out. So she had to basically leave every day to do the basic things that she needed to live in that property. So the tribunal, it heard the case. It sort of got off to a little bit of a shaky start. There were 3 previous hearings set down, and this Rotorua Trust had asked for lots of to put it off for another date. And eventually it got underway. He tried to get, for the 4th time, he tried to get it put off and said that there was something wrong with his eye and he couldn't read the paperwork, so he couldn't prepare. But eventually the Tenancy Tribunal said, no, we're ready to go. We're going to rock and roll. So we're getting underway. So that happened. And now this landlord.
Kelly, what a story. At the end of the day, $6,000 for the tenant. Really appreciate that wrap from you, Kelly. That's Kelly Makiha with the Rotorua Post with us. It has just gone 20 away from 8. Welcome to Tuesday. Thanks to our partners Noel Leeming. This week we have tech journalist Peter Griffin with us to talk technology. Peter, good morning.
Good morning, Ryan. How you doing?
Oh, very well, thank you. We had some technical problems this morning. We could have actually used you at about 7:05. I don't know if that's your area of expertise.
Streaming well now.
Now, what's the story with Apple potentially debuting these AI glasses next year?
Yeah, this is a report out from Bloomberg. The rumours have been rising over the last year or so that Apple is going to get into artificial intelligence glasses, augmented reality glasses. So they're working on it. They'll be released next year. They will do things like show you your location. You'll be able to talk to a digital assistant rather than use your phone to do all of that. But there's big stakes for Apple. They've really been late to the game on artificial intelligence. That has not gone well for them. Their last big device, the Vision Pro virtual reality headset, didn't do very well. It didn't even go on sale in New Zealand. So that has been a bit of a flop. So there's a lot of expectation on them to get this right.
So basically it would free up our hands.
Yeah.
So you would just talk to it. So if, instead of typing out a text, you would talk a text and it would show it on the screen as it's writing or something like that?
That's right, yeah. And if you think about, the smartphone, we've all got one. There's been no real innovation in the last 5 years. The last thing was foldable screens. Samsung introduced those. Everyone else followed. It's mainly been about cameras. That's where the innovation's been in smartphones. So the industry is in need of a format shift, and everyone's been trying to do it.
It's fascinating because you look at the hunch problem. I mean, people genuinely have problems with their backs and their necks because of looking down at smartphones.
Yeah.
So this will help to address that as well. I wonder what it'll do to our vision.
Well, yeah, and presumably, Meta already has the artificial intelligence Ray-Bans. That's a collaboration with the sunglass maker. You can put prescription lenses in that. So they're taking that a step further, and it's all about in the era of artificial intelligence when you can have a conversation with AI, and they call it fully duplex. You can talk over the AI. That's the latest version of it. When you build that into a device, and it's good enough, you don't actually need to look at the screen.
What do you mean talk over the AI?
So it started out a bit clunky a decade ago. When you talk to Alexa, you have to wait until Alexa finishes what she's saying. You can cancel it and sort of cut in, but now you can sort of talk over the AI and it will talk over you like a more naturalistic conversation. That's the next phase of it. It's only really been commonly used
like
now.
The one I'm about to have with Chris Hipkins, who's just walked into the studio.
Maybe so.
Now, just finally, OpenAI, they're going on a bit of a shopping spree.
$6.5 billion acquisition of a company called I.O., which is founded by the guy who basically designed the iPhone, the iPad, the Apple Watch. This is Johnny Ive, who was Steve Jobs' chief designer at Apple. He went off and did his own thing, started a company that's now been bought by Sam Altman at OpenAI, the biggest AI company in the world. So they're joining forces. So I think in the next year, this is the one to watch in terms of doing away with the black screen of a smartphone. What is coming next? They're working on a secret device. They're going to release it next year. It will combine the best of artificial intelligence and Johnny Ive's design genius. So if we're going to get the industry actually shifting forward and innovating again, this could be the moment.
That's fascinating. I can't wait to see what we're going to be using, because I am sick of using these.
Yeah, they're not ergonomically.
And they're always cracking. I mean, look at the state of that. Cracking, and then you get glass all through your fingers.
Yeah. So if it's just something you wear on your body or something like that, and you talk to it mainly, that's the future.
I'm looking forward to it. Bring on the future. Tech journalist Peter Griffin with us, and thanks to our partners Noel Leeming for our tech segment. It is just gone 16 minutes away from 8. Coming up right after the break, Labour leader Chris Hipkins is with us in studio, plus Nelson Mayor Nick Smith on the flooding and their hospital reno. Back in a second.
Maximising productivity, what have you got?
Well, if we switch to 2 degrees, with Flex for Business, we can instantly manage data usage, employee mobile plans, and cost centre reporting, saving us time and money. Cool. I'll get onto that then.
Are you considering a DIY kitchen, but just not sure if you can do it? Well, it's not as hard as you think. With You Do It DIY Kitchens, you're in safe hands. And the customer support team really know their stuff. After all, they design and manufacture everything here in New Zealand. You do it, and you save money. So choose You Do It, the affordable DIY Kiwi kitchen with a great reputation. Visit youdoit.co.nz.
After 20 seasons on the footy field, it's fair to say I know a thing or two about resilience. Digging deep when the going gets tough. Just like Kaiwaka wet weather gear. Kaiwaka's been in the game for 200 seasons. 50 years of facing up to the elements, getting the job done and coming back for more. And that's guaranteed for a lifetime. Kaiwaka, designed to perform, made to outlast.
When building for investment, it's important to find a team that you can trust.
We decided to build the GJs because of good quality that they always provide us.
They help us throughout the whole process of getting the resource consent to the building consent, and their contracts are very easy to understand. We have built 4 houses with GJ Gardeners, and it's just easier every time we work with them.
I'll definitely recommend GJs to all of my friends and family.
If you're thinking of building, choose the builder you'll want to build with time and time again.
Welcome back. You're watching Herald Now. It is 14 minutes away from 8 o'clock. Winston Peters has this morning ruled out working with Labour after the next election if leader Christopher Hipkins is still in charge. That's according to a story out this morning from Thomas Colgan at the Herald. Joining us now is the leader of the opposition. He'll be with us every Wednesday morning here on Herald Now. Good morning. Good morning. And welcome.
Thank you.
Nice to have you here. You surprised to see Winston doing that?
I think, frankly, New Zealanders have had enough of being held to ransom by Winston Peters and David Seymour. I think they want to get back to the idea that the government's there to serve people rather than serve themselves, which, you know, Winston Peters, frankly, is a master at.
So are you willing then to rule him out? I mean, he's already said no to you, so surely there's no harm now in you saying, you know what, Winnie?
Well, I did that before the last election, and I said that I think it's highly unlikely that's going to change before the next election.
I know, but that highly unlikely is not, is it?
Well, I said we'll set it out before the...
You said he's a tobacco lobbyist. You said that he's basically racist. He's a pale version of Donald Trump, and he's ruled you out. Why?
Well, that's quite a good summary, actually. I think that's not too bad at all. But look, the reality here is I think, you know, New Zealanders have had enough of the country being held to ransom by Winston Peters.
So put us out of our misery.
So it's pretty clear now. If you vote for Winston Peters, you're voting for Christopher Luxon, David Seymour and Winston Peters to continue to run their coalition of chaos.
You're saying definitively you will not work with Winston Peters either.
I'm saying exactly the same thing that I've been saying
Come
all along. Look, I mean, we'll set that out before the election because, I mean, look, I'm not going to get into the specifics of individual parties.
Yeah, but you said
we'll get asked about that because then you'll ask me about other parties.
Is he
I'm not in a position to do that?
Is he racist or not?
Oh, I just think Winston Peters has got such backwards views on a whole lot of things.
But you'd still
he's
work
more
with him.
interested in a culture war than he is in actually leading the country forward.
But you'd still work with him.
Look, I've said it's highly unlikely our position on that's going to change.
The funny thing about this is that you kind of have to keep the door open. I mean, that's MMP. You have to keep the door open a little bit in case he does want you.
Well, look,
that's what you're doing.
Winston Peters has made it clear that he's wedded to Christopher Luxon. So if you're voting for him, you're voting for Christopher Luxon. That's absolutely clear.
Okay. Well, yes, he has made that clear. Now, I guess your problem is, in the minds of the voter, it's going to be about who's the crazier of the two potential coalition partners, right?
Oh, there's a lot of water to flow under the bridge before then. See, now this is why I haven't been specific, because we're not in a position to go down that road yet. We'll set out before the election who we can and can't work with.
The Greens don't want to work with National. Winnie doesn't want to work with you. I mean, we can do the numbers.
Look, my job is basically to get as many votes for Labor as possible. The more votes I get for Labor, then the less this becomes a point of pressure.
Your biggest problem, though, is going to be how crazy and chaotic you, Te Pāti Māori and the Greens look together.
Well, see, and again, you're making a big assumption that that's what's required to form government. The more votes I get for Labor, then actually the less we need to rely on others for support.
But on current polling, that is the situation. That's the scenario we're looking at, right?
Labor's added about...
Who's crazier, do you think? You three or those three?
Hang on a minute. If you look at our current polling, Labor's added about 6% since the election. If we add another 6% to that over the coming year...
ambitious.
And then continue building, then actually these debates become quite different.
You must concede, though, you know the point that I'm making, that people, middle voters, will view you, Te Pāti Māori and the Greens as a potential coalition or a potential government as being quite unusual and a little risque.
Well, I think the difference between a government led by me and a government led by Christopher Luxon is that I believe that you should respect the voters and not allow smaller parties, to basically hold the country to ransom in the way that he does.
So you wouldn't let the Māori Party establish a Māori Parliament?
Absolutely not.
You wouldn't create a Māori Justice Authority and spend 59% of the corrections budget on it?
No.
You wouldn't reallocate 50% of the police budget to such an authority?
No.
You wouldn't end all sales to foreign interests and replace them with leasehold estates only?
I don't even know what that means.
That's a Māori Party policy.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to sit here and justify or rule in and out Māori Party policies.
Well, you just ruled out quite a few,
but I have.
I was quite happy with.
I have, and I've been very clear on this.
Okay, well, let's continue.
But I'm not going to go through every policy that they've ever announced. I mean, I don't think that's going to serve anyone's interests.
No, but those are some pretty foundational ones, right? Yeah. Okay, what about the Greens? What about the 88 billion in new taxes?
Oh, look.
Some of them, not all of them?
I think the Greens' overall package is unrealistic. I think they're trying to do too much too quickly, and I don't think that New Zealand basically could cope with that level of upheaval. So I think it is unrealistic trying to do all of that all at once.
Extend the Bright Line to 10 years?
Oh, I mean, that was what we did in government last time, but I'm not writing our policy for the next election.
But that's
right
a potential. That's a potential. And the inheritance tax too? Still a potential?
We're going to have a tax policy that we'll be releasing before the end of the year, and that will be our tax policy.
An inheritance tax?
No, we will be releasing a tax policy, which will include all of the things that we will or won't consider on tax, and we'll do that before the end of the year.
Will it include a wealth tax?
Look, I've said we're releasing our policy before the end of the year, and I'm not going to. I know you want a great scoop, but I'm not going to give you one today.
Do you think 2.5% on a $2 million asset for a single person, which is a mortgage-free home in Auckland, do you think that's too steep? Can you give the voters an idea of your thinking on that?
Sorry, what was that?
2.5% on a $2 million asset for a single person. It's basically a nice house in Auckland, mortgage-free, in retirement.
I'm not even sure what your question is.
Tax.
A wealth tax, right. Well, look, we'll set out our tax policy before the election. The tax policy that was considered by Labor before the last election had thresholds much, much higher than that.
So you wouldn't go that low?
I think that, and also, I mean, I don't think you should be imposing either a capital gains tax or a wealth tax on someone's family home.
Yeah. All right, pay equity. So, because I've been watching you in Parliament, you guys have been going hell for leather on this, and with good reason. Do we have low-paid, male-dominated industries?
Not as many as there are for women, but there are some. But less so.
Do you know how much an Uber driver gets paid?
No, actually I don't.
Average is $25 an hour.
Yeah.
And if labourers, $25 to $30 an hour. These are low-paid, male-dominated industries. Why do you think they are low-paid? Is it because they're men?
I actually think we've got some work to do around areas like Uber drivers, because I think the working conditions that Uber drivers have, the model of things like Uber, are basically driving down people's wages to an unsustainable level. So I do think we need to look at that. So I'm not going to stand here and say that it's acceptable that people are earning that little money. You should be able to earn, you know, if you're going out and you're working hard all day, you should be able to earn enough money to have a good life. And unfortunately, in the low wage economy that New Zealand is increasingly becoming, that's not the case.
What about labourers? They're men. Are they paid low wages because they're men?
Well, one of the reasons that I've supported increasing the minimum wage is I want to make sure that everybody in New Zealand is, you know, getting properly paid.
Yeah,
depending on where you're labouring, there can be quite different rates of pay. So I think we should continue to strive as a country to increase wages across the board, because that's how people create a better life for themselves.
Yeah, but are there other reasons other than the fact they're men that might mean that they're paid less?
I mean, it'll be the value that we place on that work.
Not the supply and demand of labour.
Well, see, one of the things is, you know, you talk to businesses and they want to increase the supply of labour, and this was a bone of contention between Labor and the business community before the last election, where they wanted to increase the supply of labour because they were concerned there wasn't enough labour and therefore it was inflating their value, how much they had to pay in order to get labour. And I think, frankly, that's a market. So you shouldn't infinitely, increase the supply of labour in order to drive down wages. I just don't think that's a sustainable thing for a country to do.
No, but you understand the point that some are making, that if there are low-paid male-dominated industries, in the same way that there are low-paid female-dominated industries, it's not necessarily the sex of the individual that's at fault for the low pay. It can be other factors.
You have to, in order to make a pay equity claim, I mean, I think this is a bit of red herring, because in order to make a pay equity claim, you have to demonstrate that there is sex-based discrimination. And there's a very clear criteria for doing that.
It was quite loose.
Well,
That's
no, it wasn't.
problem.
It was
That's
actually
the problem
very
with
clear.
it. I mean,
Well,
you'd be
but let's
comparing your Uber drivers with your female doctors.
But see, now this is where I think you get into really misleading territory. In order to compare two jobs for the purposes of a pay equity claim, you had to go through line by line, pretty much a time and motion study of exactly what that person does every day, the level of skill required to do it, the level of qualification required to do it, the working conditions under which they do it, to make sure that you are comparing like with like. It's not as simple as saying, okay, we're going to take that job and we're just going to see what the salary difference is and we're going to say that's the difference. That's not the way the pay equity process works. And trying to continue to claim that as the government does is totally wrong. That's not the way the pay equity process has ever worked.
All right. Appreciate you coming on this morning. I had you longer than I should have. They told me to wrap about 5 minutes ago. Thank you for staying. Appreciate your time.
We're both going to get into trouble then.
Appreciate your time. That is Chris Hipkins, Leader of the Opposition. It is just gone 4 minutes away from 8 o'clock. It was a mixed day yesterday for Nelson. First a storm and some flash flooding, and then the government announces $500 million to redevelop the hospital. Joining me now is the Mayor of Nelson, Nick Smith. Nick, good morning.
Good morning to you, Ryan. Good to be on your program.
Sorry to keep you waiting. How's the weather this morning, and where's your rain radar?
Oh, yeah. Well, sun is shining this morning. It's a gorgeous, normal Nelson day. Yesterday was the exception. The deluge that we had coincided with high tide, and that caused us quite a lot of problems, particularly in the low-lying part of the main city area. A few streets were closed. The buses we had to defer, and there will be quite a number of businesses and households that are in cleanup. One of the ironies is that the worst flooding was in the area where we're right in the middle of a multi-million-dollar upgrade of our stormwater and flood control systems. And so it reinforced the importance of that.
And Nick, what about the hospital announcement? Because basically, if you look at the amount that they're going to spend, it's half of what Labor was going to spend, but you get about half the beds you were going to get. Obviously, you'd like the bigger, shinier one with more beds, but is what they've proposed enough for Nelson?
Oh, I think it's hugely positive for Nelson. The issues with our hospital date back a long time. And there's a big difference between actually saying, here's a project we'd like to do, and actually delivering the money in the budget. And while Labor talked of a $1.1 billion project for Nelson, there was no money in the budget. We were advised by officials that the cost of that had stretched out to $1.8 billion. And also to try and keep it apolitical. Actually, it was the Health New Zealand officials that decided a different approach before the change of government. Nelson just wants progress. We're not interested in the politics around it. The commitment of $500 million is huge. It will be the biggest building in Nelson. The number of beds improves very significantly. And the icing on the cake, Ryan, yesterday in the government's announcement was building a 32-bed module ward now, because the issue is we've got a shortage of beds right now. And the great advantage of that is both meeting that need very quickly, but also making it far more practical to do the earthquake strengthening and the other work on the existing buildings that was going to be very disruptive for both patients and our health professionals. So we're stoked, but announcements are easy, delivery's a lot more challenging. My council's going to be working very closely with Health New Zealand to make sure we get the building and the resource consenting advanced as quickly as possible, because we cannot get this upgraded hospital quick enough.
Here. Let's hope they can deliver that hospital like Nelson delivers the rain. Nick, appreciate your time this morning. Nick Smith, Mayor of Nelson. It is just coming up to 8 o'clock. Very quickly, some feedback. This is from Mary. She, in reference to Simeon Brown, who was on the program earlier, Mary is grateful that the government is doing something about the 24/7 clinics. There's one in Manukau that is going to be funded. This is from Bruce. Ryan, this government talks a lot about this government talks a lot about progress on health, education, poverty, etc. None of these things are actually getting better. Ryan, please do not use my name. I won't, Anne. Just kidding. That's a fake name. I just made that up. All good and well opening an urgent care clinic in South Auckland, but no one can afford to go. What on earth is the point? There's a reason they're lining up at the hospital. Thank you very much for your feedback so far this morning. It is 8 o'clock. You're watching Herald Now. Good morning and welcome to Herald Now. I'm Ryan Bridge. It is Tuesday, the 27th of May. Coming up on the program this morning, how much help will you get from your bank if you make a mistake when you're making payments? Are they doing enough? We asked that question this morning. Save Our Sheep. Fed Farmers launches a new campaign to save the industry. And fancy something fancy for your next holiday? What about a luxury house swap? Personally, no thank you. Although that one looks nice. Maybe I would. Plus, Dame Marilyn Waring is with us on her People's Select Committee. Right now, here's Neva with your news.
Herald Now News, powered by News Talk ZB.
Winston Peters has drawn a line in the sand ahead of next year's election. For the first time, the New Zealand First Leader has explicitly ruled out working with Labour if the party is still led by Chris Hipkins. Ruling out Labour is an unusual move from Peters, who has famously been careful to never make any pre-election commitments when it comes to potential formations of government. He says Labour's abandonment of their fundamental roots as a party means they're in deep trouble, and he has no interest with working with them after the election. An Auckland business leader says technology is a key component in tracking down shoplifters. RNZ reports police staff have been directed to not investigate allegations of shoplifting below $500 and online fraud below $1,000. Police may not take further action if the reports don't have enough evidence, such as CCTV. But Newmarket Business Association Chief Executive Mark Knopf-Thomas says more businesses are investing in security cameras and new developments will make them even better. New Zealand has the third highest rate of prescription opioid use during pregnancy. A new Otago University study with 13 high-income countries has found 8% of New Zealand pregnancies are exposed to opioids. The painkillers increase risks of adverse effects such as defects, preterm births and neurodevelopmental conditions. Otago University lecturer Dr. Sarah Donald says although this is unexpected, it isn't as scary as it sounds.
Of the opioid being dispensed in New Zealand, it was predominantly codeine, a weak opioid, which would have fewer health impacts compared to something like morphine or oxycodone.
Assurance Greyhound Racing New Zealand's legal challenge of an incoming ban holds no water. Racing Minister Winston Peters gave the industry 20 months to wind down from November. Greyhound Racing NZ is applying for a judicial review, saying the government failed to inform, prepare and consult on the ban. Safe campaign manager Emma Brodie says the organisation was not blindsided by this, despite what they claim. The snow that fell on Mount Hutt earlier this month is gone. The ski field has confirmed it's no longer able to open to skiers and riders this King's Birthday weekend. A dump of snow earlier this month gave hope the mountain could be open 2 weeks early and in May for the first time since 2009. But ski area manager James McKenzie says all that snow has melted. He says the forecast does have some cold weather on the way, but they're not confident it will arrive in time. Police are responding to reports of a car colliding with a number of pedestrians at Liverpool Football Club's victory parade. A man has been arrested.
Herald Now Sport, brought to you by Gold Sport.
The Mystics remain unbeaten in netball's ANZ Premiership after a 55-54 win over the Steel in Dunedin. Defending champion Iga Swiatek has launched her quest for an unprecedented fourth consecutive women's title at the French Tennis Open with a straight sets win. Auckland FC assistant coach Danny Hay has been given a 2-match ban to serve in the next A-League football season for offensive sideline behaviour. And a guest sailor could feature on cruise at the next America's Cup.
You're watching Herald Now. It is just gone 5 minutes after 8. Now, Friedrich Merz, who's the Chancellor, the new German Chancellor, he has come out this morning and said something quite interesting about Ukraine. Because, you know, the Europeans, they talked a big game. They said, we'll sanction you, Russia, unless you kowtow and unless you do some kind of deal. And then they didn't. And then their deadline passed. And then a week later, they still hadn't done anything. Well, Friedrich Merz has come out overnight and he has said there are no longer any range restrictions on weapons delivered to Ukraine. So do you remember last year the British had the Shadow, what are they called? Shadow missiles that they gave to the Ukrainians, which they could fire inside and quite far inside Russia. Well, the Germans didn't give the green light to the same type of weapon. They now have. France has as well. So you've got France, Great Britain, and now Germany lining up saying, yeah, go for it. 500 kilometres, some of the German missiles would get inside of Russia from the border with Ukraine. So this is quite a significant development. It all comes, of course, as Trump is saying Putin's a madman and we need to do something about him. We're going to speak to Al Gillespie about these changes and these developments overnight. He's with us in just a few moments. First, here's Heather with the weather.
Herald Now Weather, brought to you by You Do It.
Good morning. The front that tracked up over the country over the last couple of days will continue to head east today, finally clearing the country tonight. The good news is that all watches and warnings have now expired, but the next round of severe weather isn't far away, with widespread rain arriving tomorrow. But first today, and apart from morning and evening cloud, the lower south is calm. Just a little more cloud expected for Te Miru and Dunedin, with developing nor'easterlies. It's looking much drier here today than yesterday, with cloud breaking for a time in the afternoon and just 1 or 2 showers remaining out west. Now, the last of the showers will clear the lower North Island this morning, with fine spells increasing after midday. Winds are light, just a northerly, developing by this evening for Wellington. There is still plenty of rain here today, though, with heavy rain this morning for some. It'll start to clear across the day with north to nor'easterlies. And a similar story as we head north, with the rain set to clear this morning as that front heads east. Winds turn southerly late this morning for Northland, with southeasterlies for Auckland.
Thanks, Heather. News in the Herald this morning. A West Auckland woman who accidentally received a pension as almost $160,000 after an account transfer error has been charged with theft and faces up to 7 years in jail if convicted. You remember this story? It was about the pensioner Andrew Chasebong. Told the Herald he missed a single digit when transferring his entire life savings from a UK bank account, and then the money was gone. So what are our rights when dealing with banks after we make mistakes? Because inevitably we always will. Associate Professor Claire Matthews, Massey University Head of School and Accountancy. She's a banking expert with us this morning. Claire, good morning.
Morena, Ryan.
Do we have any rights when it, if I accidentally get a digit wrong and all my money goes somewhere, is it all my fault?
Well, it's not exactly well, I guess it's your fault in that you put the money in the wrong place. But the person that receives it does have some responsibilities as well. If you receive money unexpectedly into your account, you are expected to return it. You can't just say, oh, wonderful, this is a wonderful windfall, and go away and spend it. Unless you could honestly believe that the money was yours. So you'd have to be expecting a large sum of money, or would have to be a small sum of money that you wouldn't otherwise notice.
What about the banks? I mean, in this particular case, but also in others, you've had pensioners who aren't probably, they're not natives when it comes to technology, making little errors here and there. Should there not be more checks and balances before you make particularly big payments?
The difference with this particular case is that we're dealing with an international payment, so it's a slightly different process. The banks have quite good checks and balances in place for domestic payments, and in particular, they've just added the name checking process, which is helpful. It doesn't prevent you making a mistake, but what it does is signal to you that you might have got something wrong, and so it's an opportunity for you to have a double check. When it comes to international payments, it's more complicated because you are dealing with a much greater variety of opportunities, despite the fact that it all comes through a SWIFT network which standardises things to some extent. That only goes so far, and the SWIFT process is somewhat simplified, if you like.
Claire, I really appreciate your time this morning. That's Claire Matthews, banking expert. It has just gone on 10 after 8, and that alleged victim, the pensioner we were talking about, told the Herald he's glad that police have finally taken action. He plans to attend next week's court appearance to, quote, see what these guys look like. So there you go. Right, Russia has launched its biggest aerial assaults of the Ukraine war so far. That's prompted US President Donald Trump to launch his own verbal attack on Vladimir Putin.
What Putin's doing, he's killing a lot of people, and I don't know what the hell happened to Putin. I've known him a long time, always gotten along with him, but he's sending rockets into cities and killing people, and I don't like it at all, okay?
Yeah, the Kremlin has called Trump emotional after that outburst, and overnight, I was just telling you about Friedrich Merz, who's the German Chancellor, giving the green light for Ukraine to use longer range missiles inside Russia. Al Gillespie, international relations expert, with me this morning. Al, good morning.
Good morning, Ryan.
Your reaction to that call from Merz?
It's not good. The way that we keep this conflict contained is that you don't have more foreign boots on the ground and that the weapons don't go over the border into Russia. Every time you start to expand the geographical range or the amount of people in the conflict, the risk of it getting out of control accelerates.
And that risk then must be increasing day by day, because we had the British do this last November, we've had the French do this, and now we've got the Germans. They're lining up on one side.
They are, that's right. And the way that you keep it contained is that the war stays, ironically, just within Ukraine. But if this occurs, then you'll find that Russia may respond in a more violent way.
Is it possible that this could do the opposite? That this show of strength and solidarity, not just talk and not just words from Europe, but actual weapons, do you think there's a chance that they could force Putin finally to come to the table and actually do something?
I think Putin's going in the opposite direction right now. I mean, we've had threats of increased sanctions. We've got threats of increased weaponry. There is discussion on the part of France of putting boots on the ground, and Mr. Putin is showing no signs of a willingness to negotiate or even discuss the most preliminary aspects. I mean, we aren't talking about peace. We're trying to get a ceasefire, which is just the simplest step towards even negotiating what a wider peace looks like. And the only country that can really put pressure on Russia right now is China. And you can see that despite all of the rhetoric that Mr. Trump is using, it's not having the impact that we would have hoped for at this point.
I was thinking about your comment about China the other day when we spoke. The only one really who can stop this war is Xi Jinping. And then you had, since we spoke, you've had Zelensky come out and say China is backdoor helping with weapons supplies to Russia. How close is, we know that diplomatically it's a close relationship, But in terms of the supply of weapons and stuff like that, do we know how close?
As far as we can see, it's at a more indirect level than a direct level. But they're certainly not as involved as, say, we are as involved in it. We're clearly backing Ukraine, and I think that's the correct thing to do. But China is not directly backing Russia. They're certainly indirectly helping them a lot, and their economic lifeline is critical. But they're the country that has the pressure. And the way that it's playing out is that it's not just Ukraine that you've got to watch. You've got to be watching all these other tensions around the world at the same time. I think with regard to Ukraine, though, right now, what you're seeing is an escalation. My particular concern overnight is when the rhetoric changes, because diplomacy works when there is calm and there is balance in the way they respond to each other. Yeah. And Mr. Trump is used to dealing with people here who can bully into position or force them into making negotiations. And Mr. Putin is not like that. He is a master of diplomacy. He's been here for over 20 years. He's gone through a sequence of American presidents. He knows exactly what he wants, and he's not budging right now. In fact, he's escalating.
Yeah. Al, appreciate your analysis as always. Al Gillespie, international relations expert. This is very quickly, it's from the BBC. This morning they were reporting the Ukrainian head of foreign intelligence. We have information that China has been supplying tools, special chemicals and gunpowder to Russia's military factories. We have confirmed data on 20 Russian factories. That's from the Ukrainian side. Just gone 8:15 now. Right, coming up next, how helpful is your bank when you get scammed? We've spoken about that already, so let's assume that's not next, but we will discuss it with our panel who are in studio straight ahead.
After 20 seasons on the footy field, it's fair to say I know a thing or two about resilience. Digging deep when the going gets tough. Just like Kaiwaka wet weather gear. Kaiwaka's been in the game for 200 seasons. 50 years of facing up to the elements, getting the job done and coming back for more. And that's guaranteed for a lifetime. Kaiwaka, designed to perform, made to outlast.
Maximising productivity, what have you got?
Well, if we switch to 2 degrees, with Flex for Business, we can instantly manage data usage, employee mobile plans, and cost centre reporting, saving us time and money. Cool. I'll get onto that then.
When building for investment, it's important to find a team that you can trust.
We decide to build the GGs because they're good quality that they always provide us.
They help us throughout the whole process of getting the resource consent to the building consent, and their contracts are very easy to understand. We have built 4 houses with GJ Gardeners, and it's just easier every time we work with them.
I'll definitely recommend GJs to all of my friends and family.
If you're thinking of building, choose the builder you'll want to build with time and time again.
I'm Hayden Scott, and I'm a knife maker. I make knives from my workshop at home in West Auckland. Yeah, my previous life, I was a chef, did that for 25 years. But I had this knife making thing that I was doing and had been doing for some time. And so that transition from finishing that 25-year career and taking the plunge into full-time knife maker, I had been building up to that, but I still had to take a leap.
Welcome back to Herald Now. It is 8:17. ASB and Lincoln University have today released a report which reveals how optimising land use by just 10% could unlock $10 billion in economic value, but at what cost? Alan Renwick, Agricultural Economics Professor at Lincoln University, is here to talk us through it. Good morning.
Morning.
Alan, what land use are we talking about? The optimising the 10%. What type of land use do we need to switch to?
Well, it's not a specific land use as such. What we're really talking about is that we need to have a wide range of options available to our land managers, to our farmers, so that they can have choices about how they boost value from their land, whilst also reducing some of these external costs associated with our land use.
Can you give us an example of what it is exactly you're talking about?
Might be diversification of a farm business. We have a need to increase our electricity generation, for example. So part of the farm could be used for renewable energy production, or sheep and beef farm could diversify with part of its land into horticulture. We could, more ambitiously, we could begin to think about how we value our biodiversity, our water quality, and things like that, and begin to create money.
So basically you're saying that it should be, rather than just having one job or one particular use under a zone, you would have multiple, you could have multiple.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's diversifying our farms and our landscapes is really, really key to this, and it doesn't mean an individual, because there's a lot of difficulty diversifying for an individual farmer. But what it could be that we could use other managers could come and use part of the land for another enterprise, which could share the value. And it's really about thinking of novel ways that we can enable farmers to gain the most from the land. One person we interviewed, I think, put it very nicely: no land is marginal. It might be marginal for dairy or beef and sheep, but all land has value. We just need to find ways to create the value, get that value out.
Alan, appreciate your time this morning. Interesting stuff. Alan Renwick from Lincoln University. It is time for our panel now. We have Peed PR founder Deborah Peed and journalist Mark Kreisel here to unpack the issues of the day. Good morning. Lovely to see you both. Yeah. Now, let's start with the Ukraine. Do you want to talk about Ukraine? Because, look, from where I'm sitting, and I know that we've come close to some peace talks, and we were going to Istanbul, and then every time you get close to it, Deborah, it feels like you then take 10 steps backwards, and I feel like that's what's happened overnight.
Yep, it does feel like it's escalating. But to me, even though we're a long way away from the battlefields, we should be concerned about this. Not just the disruption to the economy, to increase fuel prices, to increase costs of commodities, but there's an underlying world peace about this. And if one territory feels they can go in and redraw the borders, what implications does that have for us as our little nation at the bottom of the world? So we should be concerned. And yeah, I am concerned about the fact that it looks like it's escalating by the day.
Yeah, it's like there's no consequences for Vladimir Putin. Trump, it reminds me of Princess Diana when she talked about Charles. She said, I loved him, I adored him, but I was very, very let down. And I feel like Trump is in this position at the moment where he's elevated Putin to this buddy, and everything he says and done, he's not angry, he's disappointed. So there are no sanctions against him. He throws tariffs on all his mates, he doesn't mind about that, but he's not doing anything about Russia, and you need America to get involved to end this thing. Otherwise, Putin just wants the old Soviet Union back, so he's going to go for it.
Yeah. See, now Trump's argument is America can't be at war with everybody at once. So you've got the Middle East going on, you've got China as your number one threat. So his argument is actually, we don't need to be enemies with, and by the way, Ukraine, while it's significant, it's not here. You know what I mean? So that's their kind of that Trumpian America first side of that argument. You're not buying it though, are you?
No. America always gets dragged in the end. It happened in the First World War. It happened in the Second World War. Let's hope that we don't have a Third World War, because that would be an absolute disaster. It would be terrifying to be in Europe. Europe have had to step up, and fair enough. America's carried the weight of being the policeman of the world for a long, long time, and it's time that Europe did its bit, as we are now. But you can't just let it keep happening. And I just can't even imagine what it must be like for those poor people trying to go about their lives, getting bombed, and losing their young men and women on the battlefield.
No, terrible. Now, school lunches. David, actually from a PR perspective, how would you describe it? There's another story. I didn't even bother to read them now. There's another story about a school lunch, but
I've got a massive eye roll coming on with school lunches, because there seems to be no end to how bad it becomes. We've lost the plot on school lunches. Several years ago, there was a scheme called Eat My Lunch, and it was a philanthropic-led scheme. Kids would get a sandwich, they'd get a cookie, and they'd get a piece of fruit each day. And that system won awards, been recognised for school lunches. We've lost the plot. Now we're trying to give them smoked chicken and butter curry chicken, which seems to be a favourite. But like, why have we just flopped like
and
this
they're
so
all
badly?
hot meals.
Hot meals.
When did you have a hot meal as a kid?
Never. I got the same red jam sandwich on my lunch every single day.
We had gravel.
Luxury.
And we were happy about it, you know. Yeah. I don't know. It's a bit of a disaster though, because it's one of those stories that drip keeps going on.
Yeah.
There was a great piece of investigative journalism last night by Benedict Collins on One News, who found out that bug was actually a caterpillar, and it was well cooked, so it's full of protein. So probably.
Who hasn't eaten a bug sometime or other in their life? You know.
But also, I mean, we've gone. You're right. We've gone overboard in terms of what we think is appropriate. You know, like those kids that were throwing out the pasta. Did you see that?
Yeah,
I mean,
it's just outrageous.
And you look at what's happening in Gaza, and we've talked about Ukraine, and you think. I mean, come on.
But don't make promises that you're going to deliver this at a healthy meal at a good price and then don't do it. You know, if the government's going to do it, then do it properly, and don't make a big song and dance about how I'm cutting all these costs and things like that. Yep. You're just asking for trouble.
And just keep it simple. Give a budget to each school, let them sort it out with a local provider. Problem solved. I don't know why we've made it so complicated.
Yeah. Tip-top bread and Marmite. What's wrong with that?
Nothing wrong with that.
We'll be back with our panel in just a few moments here on Herald Now.
You Do It DIY can make your new dream kitchen a reality. As a trusted Kiwi manufacturer for 44 years, You Do It has made it easy to design, order and assemble your own dream kitchen, offering a range of colour options and flexible sizing. With excellent online support, our customers all agree that You Do It makes DIY easy, delivering superb quality at a great price. Get your project started today at youdoit.co.nz.
In 1985, my grandfather set out to make the world a better tea. That's why we grow our own, unlike other tea companies, then pick the best leaves by hand, not machine, and pack it right here in Sri Lanka. But it's not just the taste that makes our tea better. 15% of our profit goes to humanity and to the elephants. As my grandfather said,
do try it. After 20 seasons on the footy field, it's fair to say I know a thing or two about resilience, just like Kaiwaka wet weather gear. Digging deep when the going gets tough. Kaiwaka, designed to perform, made to outlast.
No Lemmings Price Smash is on now! Grab this Oppo Reno 12 Pro for $699. This Dell Intel i5 notebook for $1039. Get 20% off these accessories and smart home brands. Finance options available. On now at No Lemming.
Here she is. How's the business going?
Good, actually. We just switched to 2 degrees. Well, we tested the networks and couldn't see any difference. But 2 degrees has the most satisfied customers. With Flex, we get instant control of phone plans, data usage, and cost center reporting. And they're the fastest growing business network.
Can I have what she's having?
27 after 8, panel time with Herald Now. PDPR founder Deborah Peter and journalist Mark Kreisel are with us. They were with us before the break and now they're back again. Banking. Deborah, have you ever accidentally made a payment that you shouldn't have that's ended up somewhere else?
No. Ryan, you're talking to a woman who checks her bank account every single morning, after I've read the news, of course. And so much so that my partners in the business are like saying, Deborah, you're obsessed. And I check the credit card payments, and I actually picked up a payment for $1 once, and it was a fraud. So, you know, they say, $1, you just asked me for $1. It was a fraud account, and so pick that up. But in any event, no. As someone who prides herself on multitasking, when it comes to making a payment, I'm very focused on it. I do not want to send my hard-earned money into anyone else's account. Thank you very much.
Did you find out who the $1 scammer was?
Yeah, so we've stopped it right away because it forced my colleague to say, oh, she's lost her card, and they'd clearly tested it with $1. And I don't think they found out who the $1 was, but they did. They stopped the card.
That was round one of what could have been
Exactly.
a nasty fight.
Yeah.
Goodness
So
me.
they're going to have to put up with me policing the credit cards and the bank statements every day.
Good on you. Mark, what about you? Have you received any money you shouldn't have?
No, and I've got some terrible news for the children of New Zealand this morning, is that finders keepers isn't the law. That if you do get that money by mistake or whatever, that you actually have to try and give it back. I'm terrified when I put those numbers in, and I check them very, very closely, but I've noticed a number of banks now are matching the numbers with names.
Yes.
And so, I mean, that's you know, and at my daughter's school, I put some money in the other day and their name didn't quite match the number. So I went back over and I went to the school. I ended up paying in person. But it was, you know, they just didn't have their name right. But there's a lot more things in place now, I think, that the banks are realising. Before it was all on you and it's pretty terrifying.
It is.
It's easy to get, and there are a lot of numbers, so it's quite easy to get one wrong.
Especially if they're big numbers that you're transferring to, you know?
Yeah, 100%.
Hey, thank you.
Not
very much
100%.
No, minus $1. Hey guys, thank you very much for coming on. It's been lovely to see you.
Awesome. Good luck with the rest of the show.
Yeah,
very
good
much.
work. It's got a great pace.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. PPR founder Deborah Peed and journalist Mark Kreisel here on Herald Now. Right, in breaking news, a car has ploughed into football fans celebrating Liverpool's Premier League title victory today, injuring several people. An AFP journalist at the scene saw at least 4 people taken away on stretchers. You can see the scene here in front of us. Police said a 53-year-old man was arrested in relation to the incident. Witnesses report people being knocked over as a dark-coloured people carrier swerved through huge crowds among tens of thousands who turned out to see Liverpool's victory parade. Yeah, some truly shocking scenes. The man who they believe was behind it has been detained. We'll, of course, have more on this throughout the morning and at nzherald.co.nz. It has just gone 8:30, and it is time to get into the latest news headlines with Neva.
Herald Now News, powered by News Talk ZB.
Winston Peters has drawn a line in the sand ahead of next year's election. For the first time, the New Zealand First Leader has explicitly ruled out working with Labour if the party is still led by Chris Hipkins. Ruling out Labour is an unusual move from Peters, who has famously been careful to never make any pre-election commitments when it comes to potential formations of government. He says Labour's abandonment of their fundamental roots as a party means they're in deep trouble, and he has no interest with working with them after the election. An Auckland business leader says technology is a key component in tracking down shoplifters. RNZ reports police staff have been directed to not investigate allegations of shoplifting below $500 and online fraud below $1,000. Police may not take further action if the reports don't have enough evidence, such as CCTV. But Newmarket Business Association Chief Executive Mark Knopf-Thomas says more businesses are investing in security cameras and new developments will make them even better. New Zealand has the third highest rate of prescription opioid use during pregnancy. A new Otago University study with 13 high-income countries has found 8% of New Zealand pregnancies are exposed to opioids. The painkillers increase risks of adverse effects such as defects, preterm births and neurodevelopmental conditions. Otago University lecturer Dr. Sarah Donald says although this is unexpected, it isn't as scary as it sounds.
Of the opioid being dispensed in New Zealand, it was predominantly codeine, a weak opioid, which would have fewer health impacts compared to something like morphine or oxycodone.
Assurance Greyhound Racing New Zealand's legal challenge of an incoming ban holds no water. Racing Minister Winston Peters gave the industry 20 months to wind down from November. Greyhound Racing NZ is applying for a judicial review, saying the government failed to inform, prepare and consult on the ban. Safe campaign manager Emma Brodie says the organisation was not blindsided by this, despite what they claim. The snow that fell on Mount Hutt earlier this month is gone. The ski field has confirmed it's no longer able to open to skiers and riders this King's Birthday weekend. A dump of snow earlier this month gave hope the mountain could be open 2 weeks early and in May for the first time since 2009. But ski area manager James McKenzie says all that snow has melted. He says the forecast does have some cold weather on the way, but they're not confident it will arrive in time. Police are responding to reports of a car colliding with a number of pedestrians at Liverpool Football Club's victory parade. A man has been arrested.
Herald NOW Sport, brought to you by Gold Sport.
The Mystics remain unbeaten in netball's ANZ Premiership after a 55-54 win over the Steel in Dunedin. Defending champion Iga Swiatek has launched her quest for an unprecedented fourth consecutive women's title at the French Tennis Open with a straight sets win. Auckland FC assistant coach Danny Hay has been given a 2-match ban to serve in the next A-League football season for offensive sideline behaviour. And a guest sailor could feature on cruise at the next America's Cup.
Thank you, Neva. It is 26 minutes away from 9 o'clock now. HealthScope, you probably wouldn't have heard of this company. It's the parent company in Australia of a whole bunch of hospitals. They're private hospitals. 37 hospitals in Australia owned by this parent company. It's just collapsed, gone into receivership. Responsible for, this is fascinating for me, 70% of all elective surgeries from this one private health provider in Australia. Most of them are publicly funded, but they go through private hospitals to get them done, 37 of them around the country. 70% of their elective surgeries and a quarter of their births. Now, in New Zealand, we've been having a debate, and we've been having it for a couple of weeks quite feverishly, about whether we should be investing public money into private hospitals to cut our waiting lists. They do it in Australia all the time. They do it to get the COVID delays down, do it in Canada quite frequently, and is quite accepted there. So when you've got 70% of elective surgeries in Australia being done by the private hospitals, I just thought, what's the big problem, you know? Anyway, that particular hospital those particular hospitals will continue. The parent company gone into receivership, but got enough cash and bank loans in the meantime to get them through, and then they will sell those hospitals. Apparently, there's plenty of buyers. Right, it is 25 away from 9. Here's weather.
Herald NOW Weather, brought to you by You Do It.
Good morning. The front that tracked up over the country over the last couple of days will continue to head east today, finally clearing the country tonight. The good news is that all watches and warnings have now expired, but the next round of severe weather isn't far away, with widespread rain arriving tomorrow. But first today, and apart from morning and evening cloud, the lower south is calm. Just a little more cloud expected for Te Miru and Dunedin, with developing nor'easterlies. It's looking much drier here today than yesterday, with cloud breaking for a time in the afternoon and just 1 or 2 showers remaining out west. Now, the last of the showers will clear the lower North Island this morning, with fine spells increasing after midday. Winds are light, just a northerly, developing by this evening for Wellington. There is still plenty of rain here today though, with heavy rain this morning for some. It'll start to clear across the day with north to nor'easterlies. And a similar story as we head north, with the rain set to clear this morning as that front heads east. Winds turn southerly late this morning for Northland, with southeasterlies for Auckland.
Thanks, Heather. Farmers are fuming this morning. They say that carbon farms are harbouring pests like stoats and possums. There's pigs, there's deer, all sorts, jumping paddocks, harming their farmland and livestock. It comes as Fed Farmers launches a campaign to save the declining sheep industry. This morning on News Talk ZB's Early Edition, I spoke with the Associate Minister of Agriculture, Andrew Hoggard, and started by asking him about the pests jumping borders.
I mean, it's been a growing problem over the last 3 or 4 years, and quite frankly, I think you go back to the COVID lockdown, it just seemed like there was a explosion in pest numbers across farms. I'm seeing more and more deer on my place than I ever did before, and so a combination of people not going out hunting just allowed lots of breeding. And I think in terms of those forestry blocks, it's something I'm going to have a look into, and we're redoing the biosecurity Act at the moment, and I know in the old Act there was always a duty of a landowner to maintain, control pests within their boundary and make sure they're not going across their boundary to other people's property. So I'll take a double look at what we're proposing there as to whether or not that needs to be strengthened up.
So you would potentially put more onus on the carbon farmers to look after the deer and the pests and the stoats and everything on their land so that it doesn't go and annoy everybody else?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, that's part of the deal would be, you look after, you're responsible for what happens on your property, and you should not be exporting problems from across your property to your neighbours. It's your duty as a landowner to control what's happening on your property and make sure those problems don't go across.
What's the fine? What happens at the moment if that's found to have happened?
Basically, from memory, and I've only ever heard about this in terms of weed pests, the regional council might come by and say, hey, you've got too many thistles or whatever on your property, you need to go and manage them. I don't think, to be honest, that it's something up until this point that's ever really been well enacted or looked at even or taken seriously. So potentially this is something we do need to look into a lot more.
What could you do? I mean, obviously it would probably be presumably be quite hard to prove.
I mean, yeah, that would be something we'd need to have a look into. I mean, you can easily do counts of animals and go, well, look, there's a truckload of pigs here. This is becoming a problem, and you can see the damage that has been occurring on neighbouring property, and make some sort of
slap them with a fine.
A fine or just the direction they need to take care of these pests and invest in getting hunters in to remove these pests.
Is the expansion of carbon farms the reason that this Save Our Sheep campaign is getting underway?
I think it's part of the reason. Another part is I believe, concerned about what might be happening in terms of methane targets. But we haven't had those discussions between parties yet as to what those targets may well be. So I think they're probably putting a stake in the ground.
When are those chats happening?
I'm not sure. I'm not the one that is required to have those. The other ministers have to chat with me, not the other way around. So I am waiting with bated breath.
Nice work, Ryan. That was the Associate Agriculture Minister, Andrew Hoggard, on News Talk ZB's early edition with me earlier. It's 20 away from 9, and you're watching Herald Now. There are a couple of ways you can watch us on Herald Now every weekday. The Herald website, nzherald.co.nz, and you will see the video on the top right-hand corner of your page. Click on the video, it'll go full screen on your browser, or if you're looking for a way to watch us on a smart TV or a device, head to our YouTube channel, search at Herald Now TV, and you'll find us every time we are streaming. Make a point of clicking subscribe while you're there, and then you'll be able to watch us live and watch us back, and then watch clips and all sorts of different things. It's nice. A luxury house swapping initiative is coming to New Zealand, and we've got Coast FM host Lorna Riley, who is also the host of the Trip Notes podcast, which is a must listen, here to give us the lowdown. Lorna, good morning.
Good morning, Ryan.
Now, tell us about Third Home. Basically, I know what you're going to say. My house won't be good enough.
Indeed.
But give us the lowdown.
Yeah, I thought we'd start really high end. So this was just launched in New Zealand last week. It's been around for about 15 years, founded by Wade Sheely, who's an American. And this is a way where, rather than just swapping in the traditional sense, you can swap your homes over a certain value, but you can actually choose from over 18,000 properties right around the world in more than 100 countries. And not just your average homes. We've got castles, we've got ranches, we've got yachts, we've got safaris, you name it, it is in there. So you sort of earn credits on renting out your own second home. So the market here is people who own a second home that is worth around $3 million upwards. And if you have one of those and you're not monetising it, then this is the way to do it. Everyone's vetted, so you know you're going to get good people in your home, and that's the way it works.
Lorna, it sounds fantastic. It sounds like a place that I would love to go and stay, but it's just, I'm not sure something that I would be able to actually offer up a $3 million plus, not first home, but second home, Lorna.
Yes.
Anyway, we will.
There is an option for people like us who can't ever be a part of this club,
okay,
and that is on
more.
3 Now. It's called Millionaire House Swap, and this is the third home model. They go through some of these houses, so we can look at how the other half live from the comfort of our own homes.
I like the sound of that. Now, we heard earlier in the morning about, from Christchurch, the flights that are going Melbourne, Sydney. We've actually got 2 different carriers involved, do we?
Yeah, so there's some new flights now. Qantas have announced new direct flights. Singapore Airlines have brought in some direct flights from Christchurch, which is really great. Qantas has just announced a massive sale this week, a global sale, so prices $509 return, Auckland to Melbourne, cheaper than Air New Zealand and actually cheaper than their own subsidiary, which is Jetstar. So well worth checking out. So they've got Australia, Bali, the Philippines, the USA, and their premium economy is about half the price at the moment of flying Air New Zealand as well. It's all coinciding, of course, with Air New Zealand introducing their retrofit 787 Dreamliner. Have you seen these?
I've seen them.
Pretty amazing. So we've got 1 now. We'll have another 6 by the end of this year, and there'll be another 7 next year. They take 184 days to retrofit these nose to tail, and about 39 million per aircraft.
It's not
so
cheap.
It is not
cheap.
cheap.
Why flying is so darn expensive, presumably.
Absolutely.
But the thing that annoys me when they do these seat upgrades is they're saying, oh, you get an extra 2 inches on your TV screen. I'm like, I want more room for my legs. I don't care, you know.
Actually, this new retrofit Dreamliner does have something that no use to someone of my short stature, but for someone like you, you can opt for economy stretch, which gives you that extra leg room. And yes, you get the bigger TV screens. One thing I think that'll appeal to everybody is in every class you've now got Bluetooth connection availability. So instead of fiddling around with some kind of adapter that'll allow you to connect, you can now connect your own headphones.
Oh, that's something.
Yeah.
Now, who is this woman that's been to 35... she's been to every country in the world, but she's only 35?
Yes, well, she's 41 now, but she set a goal for herself just after 30 that she was going to visit every country in the world. Her name is Jessica Nabongo, and she is my follow of the week if you're interested in travel. There's less than 400 people that have actually visited every country in the world. That's 195 countries. She was the first black woman to do it, and she's done most of it solo. So she's a fascinating follow for anyone who's interested in solo travel. But not only that, she looks like a supermodel. So her Instagram is absolutely amazing. At Jessica Bongo. She was my guest on Trip Notes last week. She's absolutely brilliant, and she tells us her favourite country in the world to visit, Bhutan, and also the city she will never ever go back to as a woman travelling alone, and that is Delhi in India.
Yeah. What about her least favourite country? Did she say, well, India?
She's not so indiscreet as to say that, but she's been back to 60 of those 195 countries again.
Does she work? What does she...
She did work. She quit her job to do this. People say, oh, it must be nice to have money. Well, she started as a budget traveller, but now, of course, she's got all sorts of sponsorship deals going on. So this is her full-time job now. She's put out a book, The Catch Me If You Can, which has been published by National Geographic, in which she details 100 of those 195 countries. But yeah, an absolutely fascinating follow for sure.
Wow, very cool. Lorna, lovely to have you on the program.
Thanks,
I'm sure
Ryan.
we'll see you again very shortly. That is Lorna Riley with us from Coast FM, but also the Travel Notes podcast. Coming up next, kiwi oat milk launching in Australia, and a look ahead at what's coming up today after this quick break.
Maximising productivity, what have you got?
Well, if we switch to 2 degrees, with Flex for Business, we can instantly manage data usage, employee mobile plans, and cost centre reporting, saving us time and money. Cool. I'll get onto that then.
Are you considering a DIY kitchen, but just not sure if you can do it? Well, it's not as hard as you think. With You Do It DIY Kitchens, you're in safe hands. And the customer support team really know their stuff. After all, they design and manufacture everything here in New Zealand. You do it, and you save money. So choose You Do It, the affordable DIY Kiwi kitchen with a great reputation. Visit youdowit.co.nz.
After 20 seasons on the footy field, it's fair to say I know a thing or two about resilience. digging deep when the going gets tough. Just like Kaiwaka wet weather gear. Kaiwaka's been in the game for 200 seasons. 50 years of facing up to the elements, getting the job done and coming back for more. And that's guaranteed for a lifetime. Kaiwaka, designed to perform, made to outlast.
When building for investment, it's important to find a team that you can trust.
We decided to build the GJs because of the good quality that they always provide us.
They help us throughout the whole process of getting the resource consent to the building consent, and their contracts are very easy to understand. We have built 4 houses with GJ Gardeners, and it's just easier every time we work with them.
I'll definitely recommend GJs to all of my friends and family.
If you're thinking of building, choose the builder you'll want to build with time and time again.
Welcome back to Herald Now. Great to have your company. Just gone 11 minutes away from 9 o'clock. Right, hospitals. We spoke to Michael Morra earlier in the program. We brought you his report from yesterday. 1,500 patients treated in corridors at Middlemore Hospital last winter. And we've spoken to a doctor this morning from the emergency department who said we are on track this year. It's not even guesswork at this point. They've been there, they've done that, to be even worse this winter than we were last winter. So what on earth do we do about this? Chelsea Daniels from the Front Page podcast is looking at this issue today. Chelsea, good morning.
Good morning.
Good to have you here. You've been speaking to Michael Morra. He's done a 3-part investigation, which we've been sort of using here on our program, and also speaking to the Minister. But you're speaking to Michael?
Yeah, so I spoke to Michael this morning as well. We went through all of his investigations, and of course there are some abysmal numbers, isn't there? And just some harrowing stories from the front line as well. I mean, he told me about the comments from staffers in these reports, and I'll read a couple out to you because it really actually got me in the feels, a couple of them. One said, lack of resourcing and support for ED at Middlemore is having a significant effect on morbidity and mortality of the population. Another one said, reported ED overcrowding does not show the old ladies who wet themselves in the corridor because there is nowhere else to go. I mean, do you want your nana going to the ED?
No.
And being in that situation?
The emergency physician we had on this morning, because I said, oh, look, this could just be people with the sniffles in the corridor, right? And she said, no, these are people who've been in car accidents and people who have had a stroke.
It's a common myth, that one as well, and I don't know where it's come from. I'd love to know where that came from because everybody says that,
I think it's come from the fact that we trust our doctors and nurses and healthcare professionals, and we can't imagine them doing something like that.
Yeah.
But there is literally, in Middlemore, there is literally no space, there's no choice.
It's no. And I spoke to a general practice physician last month about this. And I mean, instead of EDs being the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff, so to speak, we should be investing more in our general practice, because I was amazed when I came over here actually, is that not everyone has that family physician. So back home, my family doctor has seen me and been with me since I was born, basically. So you've got that relationship with them. He'll know if something's off, or he knows if something's off with my dad or my mum or something. It's really important to create those relationships and keep going back to the same GP because they know that something's wrong. Whereas if you don't do that, you end up in the ED. And so filtering some of that out through general practice, I think, is the way to go. Because staff shortages in EDs, I mean, it's a continuous problem, isn't it? It's a tale as old as time.
It certainly is. Looking forward to the podcast today. Chelsea, thank you for coming in. Chelsea Daniels from the Front Page podcast is with us every day to tell us about what's coming up. It is 8 minutes away from 9 o'clock and you're watching Herald Now. Time to talk business with our partners 2 Degrees. Garth Bray from Business Desk joins us earlier. We spoke about what's going on in Shanghai. There's a dairy convention called Bakery China, and he told us who the heavy hitters were there.
Fonterra putting a big push in there because obviously there's a $130 billion market up there at the moment, and it's going to grow by 50% over the next 3 years, and they're all already grabbing their share of that. They had a milk tanker on the floor up there for people to take a look at, and this sort of vast display that looked a lot like a game show. The US trade delegation, it looked a little bit more like one of those sort of locksmiths you have in the middle of the mall. Kind of like real small scale.
Well, so, not surprising, I suppose, given the state of things.
Yeah.
All right, what else, Garth? What have we got today?
Oats. Nothing boring about boring oat milk. You've probably seen it in the shops. It's, I think, something like about 20% or so of the plant milk that's consumed here. They have got a deal to go into Australia big time. They have been pushing slowly through specialist stores. They're now into 950 Woolworths outlets and about 80 odd metros. So that's like 1,000 stores. They're going huge with sort of Southland Oats and Otago Oats, and really just a great story of a business that didn't exist 3 or 4 years ago and has just scaled up massively through a plant in Hawke's Bay and is going gangbusters, really.
That was Garth Bray earlier in the program with Business Desk, thanks to our partners 2 Degrees. Right, coming up next, we'll tell you what's ahead in the news diary for the rest of the day. Stick around.
After 20 seasons on the footy field, it's fair to say I know a thing or two about resilience. Digging deep when the going gets tough. Just like Kaiwaka wet weather gear. Kaiwaka's been in the game for 200 seasons. 50 years of facing up to the elements, getting the job done and coming back for more. And that's guaranteed for a lifetime. Kaiwaka, designed to perform, made to outlast.
Maximising productivity, what have you got?
Well, if we switch to 2 Degrees, with Flex for Business, we can instantly manage data usage, employee mobile plans and cost centre reporting, saving us time and money. Cool. I'll get onto that then.
When building for investment, it's important to find a team that you can trust.
We decide to build the GGs because they're good quality that they always provide us.
They help us throughout the whole process of getting the resource consent to the building consent, and their contracts are very easy to understand. We have built 4 houses with GJ Gardeners, and it's just easier every time we work with them.
I'll definitely recommend GJs to all of my friends and family.
If you're thinking of building, choose the builder you'll want to build with time and time again.
I'm Hayden Scott, and I'm a knife maker. I make knives from my workshop at home in West Auckland. Yeah, my previous life I was a chef, did that for 25 years, but I had this knife making thing that I was doing and had been doing for some time, and so that transition from finishing that 25 years.
After 20 seasons on the footy field, it's fair to say I know a thing or two about resilience. Digging deep.
Welcome back. You're watching Herald Now. It's just gone 5 away from 9. Katie Oliver, our Herald Now reporter, is with us for a look at what's developing news-wise today. Katie, good morning. Now, the Run It Straight competition that everyone is, well, not everyone, but some people are up in arms about, there are people who are taking part now defending it.
Yes, so fans have spoken out. Local democracy reporter Mary Afamata has just published an article about how it's a way for the community to come together and, I guess, raise awareness about mental health and mental illness, particularly in the Polynesian community. Now, TikTok creator, his name is Stephen Vetu, said it's really been bolstering the Polynesian community, and as much as it's, you know, a bit contested and a bit wild what they are doing, he says it's actually brought a lot of people together in a community that's pretty vulnerable to mental health, really negative mental health statistics.
I think it's funny. If people want to run full steam ahead at each other, they're grown adults, that's their decision.
And that's what they're saying. They said at the end of the day, it's their choice. It's up to the individual, and it seems that they really enjoy it.
Like, I would not do this.
No,
but as
neither.
you say, if it's good for their mental health, if it makes them feel good, gets them out of the house, then with some friends, then what's the problem?
I mean, some people are arguing how good is it for their mental health if it's knocking their brains around like that.
Well, that's true. Long term, you could argue.
Yes, so there are two sides of the coin, but...
And what about ACC? Do they get ACC, presumably, if there's injuries?
Look, I mean...
No different to rugby.
Exactly.
Hey, this food bank in Christchurch...
Yes.
Who robs a food bank?
Yes, so that's the question. It's pretty awful. Hoon Hay Food Bank were robbed on Sunday at 10:20 p.m. and the robbers stole frozen goods, basically a solid amount of everything that they had for 121 families that were waiting to have their kids' mouths fed. So who robs a food bank? I don't know, it kind of begs the question. They could have literally gone to the food bank and asked for food and they would have received it. So it's actually just really sad, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
One good thing that's come out of that, though, is that the community's really rallied together and fundraise for them. So
that's
cool.
good.
Yeah.
What about up at Northland, this arrest home romance? What can you tell us about this?
Yeah, age is just a number. This is a classic. A 99-year-old entered the arrest home in Whangarei thinking that, you know, his crazy times were over until he met Felicia, and they had a whirlwind romance, and they're in love and they got married. So it's pretty cool. And it's just a pretty classic example of living life to the fullest, and just because you're 99 doesn't mean your love life's over, I guess.
That's lovely. Lovely story. Felicia and what was his name?
Felicia and Denham.
Felicia and Denham.
Yeah.
Names. That's a lovely story. Katie, thank you for that.
Thanks,
There's
Ryan.
Katie Oliver with your news wrap this morning. It is coming up 2 minutes away from 9 o'clock. And if you're watching Felicia and Denham, I hope you have a fantastic day. Now, I want to talk to you about what happened yesterday on the program. Nicola Willis came on the show and said National is still got the super age on the radar. So they're not going to do the means testing by the sounds of it of our super, but at some stage we are going to have to either means test or change the age of eligibility for NZ Super. And overnight, just on the back of that, everyone's utopia Denmark increased their age for a second time. So they went from 65 to 67. Last night, they went from 67 to 70 years of age. The new law will apply to people born after December 31, 1970. So anyone born after 1970, you won't get super until you're 70. They've got 6 million people in their country, similar number to us, and the employment minister said, surprise, surprise, they can't afford it going into future generations. Developments in recent years clearly show a marked increase in the number of Danes who continue to work until and beyond the state pension age. So, the Danes have done it, the Brits have done it, most of Europe's done it, we will do it. It's just a matter of when. You're watching Herald Now. Here's Neva with your news.
Herald Now News, powered by News Talk ZB.
Winston Peters has drawn a line in the sand ahead of next year's election. For the first time, the New Zealand First Leader has explicitly ruled out working with Labour if the party is still led by Chris Hipkins. Ruling out Labour is an unusual move from Peters, who has famously been careful to never make any pre-election commitments when it comes to potential formations of government. He says Labour's abandonment of their fundamental roots as a party means they're in deep trouble, and he has no interest with working with them after the election. An Auckland business leader says technology is a key component in tracking down shoplifters. RNZ reports police staff have been directed to not investigate allegations of shoplifting below $500 and online fraud below $1,000. Police may not take further action if the reports don't have enough evidence, such as CCTV. But Newmarket Business Association Chief Executive Mark Knopf-Thomas says more businesses are investing in security cameras and new developments will make them even better. New Zealand has the third highest rate of prescription opioid use during pregnancy. A new Otago University study with 13 high-income countries has found 8% of New Zealand pregnancies are exposed to opioids. The painkillers increase risks of adverse effects such as defects, preterm births and neurodevelopmental conditions. Otago University lecturer Dr. Sarah Donald says although this is unexpected, it isn't as scary as it sounds.
Of the opioid being dispensed in New Zealand, it was predominantly codeine, a weak opioid, which would have fewer health impacts compared to something like morphine or oxycodone.
Assurance Greyhound Racing New Zealand's legal challenge of an incoming ban holds no water. Racing Minister Winston Peters gave the industry 20 months to wind down from November. Greyhound Racing NZ is applying for a judicial review, saying the government failed to inform, prepare and consult on the ban. Safe campaign manager Emma Brodie says the organisation was not blindsided by this, despite what they claim. The snow that fell on Mount Hutt earlier this month is gone. The ski field has confirmed it's no longer able to open to skiers and riders this King's Birthday weekend. A dump of snow earlier this month gave hope the mountain could be open 2 weeks early and in May for the first time since 2009. But ski area manager James McKenzie says all that snow has melted. He says the forecast does have some cold weather on the way, but they're not confident it will arrive in time. Police are responding to reports of a car colliding with a number of pedestrians at Liverpool Football Club's victory parade. A man has been arrested.
Herald Now Sport, brought to you by Gold Sport.
The Mystics remain unbeaten in netball's ANZ Premiership after a 55-54 win over the Steel in Dunedin. Defending champion Iga Swiatek has launched her quest for an unprecedented fourth consecutive women's title at the French Tennis Open with a straight sets win. Auckland FC assistant coach Danny Hay has been given a 2-match ban to serve in the next A-League football season for offensive sideline behaviour. And a guest sailor could feature on cruise at the next America's Cup.
You're watching Herald Now. It is 3 minutes after 9 o'clock. This is our second episode. We are but a baby. We will grow over the next days and weeks and months ahead, but it's lovely to have you along for the journey, and I just want to say thank you very much for all of your feedback thus far. Very much appreciated, and we are reading it. I also want to say a special thank you to our partners, our sponsors of this program, who are bringing it to us. There's no sucking on the taxpayer teat over here. 2 Degrees, thank you very much. Forsyth Bar, thank you very much. Noel Leeming, You Do It, who does our weather. GJ Gardner, who supports our news. And Barkers, of course, who makes me look good every morning. Right now, let's get to Heather with weather.
Herald Now Weather, brought to you by You Do It.
Good morning. The front that tracked up over the country over the last couple of days will continue to head east today, finally clearing the country tonight. The good news is that all watches and warnings have now expired, but the next round of severe weather isn't far away, with widespread rain arriving tomorrow. But first today, and apart from morning and evening cloud, the lower south is calm. Just a little more cloud expected for Te Miru and Dunedin, with developing nor'easterlies. It's looking much drier here today than yesterday, with cloud breaking for a time in the afternoon and just 1 or 2 showers remaining out west. Now, the last of the showers will clear the lower North Island this morning, with fine spells increasing after midday. Winds are light, just a northerly, developing by this evening for Wellington. There is still plenty of rain here today though, with heavy rain this morning for some. It'll start to clear across the day with north to nor'easterlies. And a similar story as we head north, with the rain set to clear this morning as that front heads east. Winds turn southerly late this morning for Northland, with southeasterlies for Auckland.
Thanks, Heather. And thank you for watching. That's it for today. We'll be back tomorrow from 7 o'clock. Until then, you can keep on top of all the news at nzherald.co.nz. You've been watching Herald Now. I'm Ryan Bridge. See you tomorrow.